Omega Strikers. What a game. But what is an Omega Strikers, you may ask? Omega Strikers is a 3v3 footbrawler. What the heck is a footbrawler? There's a ball, and you hit that ball to score goals. You can choose various characters to play as, and they all have their own and unique abilities. As an example, Fini does magic. Luna kills people. Octavia goes fast. Juliette kills people. Vice kills people. Kozan kills people. That's a really cool game concept, right? I wonder if the game is famous. It isn't. But hey, enough of that now. Let's get onto the topic of this video. The Juno plush. Juno is one of the many characters in Omega Strikers, but sadly the only one to get a plushie version of her. I wonder why. But what would the rest of the characters look like if they also got their own cute plush versions? That's what we came here to do today. Before we start, I'd like to credit Ty from Bizabizo and her Fixing FNAF Plushies series for heavily inspiring this video. If you'd like to, please check her out in the description down below. Now to fit these designs into plush forms, we'll have to simplify them a lot since plushies are something small, and also so these won't be something horrible to look at. To help us in this journey, we'll look at some of the makeshift plushies that exist. Because makeshift made the Juno plush, obviously. They all share this same little body type, so that's the base we'll be using for all of them, only tweaking something here and there if it's needed for certain characters. Just like how Juno's hands are bigger than the rest, because that's how she looks in the game. And in not actually making these into real things, they're just gonna be silly little drawings. I thought that was obvious, but just wanted to point that out. In this episode, we will only be making teams Frostfire and Ember Monarchs. I know it's sad you won't get to see everyone here, but if you want this series to continue, hit that like button and subscribe so I know you all want this to keep going. Maybe write a nice comment too if you wanna. But now, onto our first plushie. And here she is. Oh, so cute isn't she? For Juliette, I made her eyes a lot bigger to look more cute and cuddly, which is something we'll see in most of these designs. Most of her face is actually based on this little icon we have on the Strikers tab on the games, so she was one of the easiest to make. Her bangs could be just a piece of fabric stitched onto her face because that's what I think would work best. And her bandana thing actually wraps around her head, as you can see here. These two straps here are just stitched on and not actually tied up pieces because I don't think that would be possible for such a small accessory. Her hoodie thing takes most of her body instead of just the upper area like her actual design because the legs of these are so small. And of course, her glove that she uses to strike people off the field. One of the most important parts of her design. At least for me. It could be made of this more hard type of fabric. What is the name of this? just this one on the screen, okay? Her shoes are a more roundish version of the ones she wears, so they look more cute to fit onto the plushie. And one last little detail I thought would be fun to add. Aww. And there we go. Our first striker into a plushie done.
I am the deadliest rose.
Man, shut up!
Oh my god, Estelle. Even though she's one of my least favorites, I think she still turned out really great. Again, just like Juliette, her eyes are bigger, but this time I gave her a winking expression to differentiate her to the rest. And also because she winks. And mostly because she looks pretty winky. Her makeup is just printed on color just like the details on Juno's body. This little piece of hair she has on her face is some fabric stitched onto the top of her forehead. The details she has on her torso are a lot simpler here to not clutter the design too much, like these 4 circles here being only 2 on the plushie. You may have already noticed, but her hands and feet are smaller and sharper because I thought it would fit Estelle better. And to be honest, she looked weird with the circle feet and hands. I don't know why, lol. This gradient color she has going on her hands would be printed on color as well, cause I don't think you could do that by stitching multiple fabric on each other. And here you can see that her hair is just a flat piece, and if you're curious, here's how her back looks like. Not really much going on in there. And she's done. Estelle from Frostfire, from Omega Strikers, from Odyssey Interactive.
Dubu!
Now, for Dubu, we're gonna have to change a lot of the base body we're using. So we'll have to do something like this. Oh my god, I tried searching for references of hamster plushies, but none of them looked like what I had in mind, so I had to cook it up myself. His body was a bit of a challenge to get right and make it look good. But as you can see here, his head is big, but not bigger than his body like the others, because his big belly is a pretty important part of his character, and it makes him look cuter overall. His ears are made just like the ones of this plushie that I mentioned, just a bit curvier to match Dubu's ears. This spiral circle thing he has for his belly button would be printed on fabric as well. His scarf goes around his head normally, but with these 2 pieces here being smaller instead of the long ones we have on Dubu's design because it looks better for the plushie. His shoulder pads could be made of the same harder fabric that I mentioned for Juliette's glove, and his shoes and hands pretty much stayed the same, just smaller versions. And of course,
Dubu!
Dubu, did you say something? Probably wasn't important, as I was saying. His little tail's just a pointy ball with stuffing inside, but I think it would also look cute if it was made of this furry material. And finally, Team Frostfire is done.
Let's give my fans a treat. Try and keep up, Jules.
Odyssey, please don't turn me into marketable plushies. Odyssey!
I feel like I changed his hair a bit too much. I don't know why, but I still like the result, so I'm happy with how he turned out. His face and clothes are really simple except for his jacket, so not really much to talk about here. Again, bigger eyes, but this time I made him smile. But it's not just any smile. It's an evil smile. His shirt and pants stayed the same. I only changed his collar and this chain here to a thin piece of fabric because I don't know how plushie chains would work. And for his shoes, they're also a bit simplified. And now for the fun part, his jacket. The fluffy part of it would be made of actual fluffy material like in the game, and the jacket just hangs on his shoulder by attaching onto these Velcros right here. And with that, you could actually make Kai wear it. I just don't know how that would look, so I didn't draw it. Oops, my bad law. And Kai is done. I did not notice how big Era's eyes were until I started making this one help. Well, here she is. Let's start with her face. I gave her a more sad and shy expression to fit Era more, and her makeup is very simple and would be printed on color just like Estelle's. The hair covering her face is a simple piece of fabric, so you can pull it up and see her other eye. The hoodie is attached to her head and sadly not removable, because if it was, I think it would end up looking goofy anyways since her head is so big. Her hair is way smaller, so it fits on the small body. This tie she uses is a lot bigger, and her overall outfit is simpler, like these pieces here being way smaller on our version. And the details on her sleeves are now closer to each other to fit the smaller arms too. Her legs are smaller, and her feet is a bit longer to look like she's wearing these platforms she has on her design. And last but not least, you can't have Era without one of her butterflies, so she can cast her super magical powers. And of course, the butterfly will be stitched onto her hand, just like how the Juno plushie holds her blobbo. And Era is finally finished. X was a nightmare to work with. And definitely the hardest one to make too. And it's mostly because of the way his hair is built. I mean, just look at it. So well, here's what I came up with. Just like with Kai, I gave him an evil smile. And I know, his hair looks a little weird from this angle, so that's why I gave him a side profile. The dark red part of his hair has these two shapes here stitched onto it, and the main part of his hair is separated from the rest. Now on his body, these chains here are just fabric with the pattern printed onto them. And these spikes we have here are just little stitched on circles. His torn up sleeves are not actually torn up on the plushie. They're just cut in a way to give that illusion. And because if they were torn up, that would cause the fabric to look like this, and we definitely don't want that. And this logo he has on his back is just stitched onto it. His tattoo is printed on the fabric of his arm, and I removed the spikes he has on his hands because I didn't find a way to make them look good. And I think the design just looks cleaner without them. And his gloves are also made of the harder fabric that I mentioned for Dubu and Juliette. His belt is a way more simpler version of the one we have here, and that's pretty much it for his pants. They're not as complicated as the rest of his design lore. And hey, jump scare warning. Oh my god, and that's pretty much all I had to mention for our very excessive plushie. And like always, here's our obligatory 360. And look, you've reached the end of the video. Go check these awesome people here in the description below. And if you liked what you just watched, and you want to see more teams made into plushies in the future, please consider liking and subscribing. This was a very fun little project to make, and I would love to keep doing it. And if you have friends that are interested in Omega Strikers, why not share this video to them? But oh well, I'll see you all again in part 2 of this series.
As always.